decades of software, productivity has actually declined. And that's exactly where today's guest is building. Kanav Hasija is the co-founder and CEO of MeltPlan, where he is building what he calls a planning engine for construction, rethinking how projects are designed, estimated, and executed before a single brick is laid. Before this, Kanav and hold on co-founded ex-Innovaccer, a $3 billion health tech company focused on making healthcare more affordable and accessible in the US. So he's no stranger to tackling complex broken systems. Joining me today is one of my very good friends, Jess Clements, principal at Noah VC, where he is splitting his time between deal sourcing, investment due diligence, and portfolio management, just as any other VC, and leads the firm's focus on construction technology and deep tech businesses. Together, we'll unpack why pre-construction has remained unsolved for so long. Kanav, Jess, great to have you both with me.
Nice to be here.
Kanav, did I get your intro, what you've done in this world and what you've set out to do now, somewhat correct?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty succinct, I would say.
How do you go from healthcare to construction?
Well, healthcare is a big problem to solve in the US. But when the AI world came about, I was feeling a bit more constrained with all the healthcare regulations, and I wanted to get to an industry in which I can move fast with AI. And construction came to me because of two reasons. One, I was remodeling my house in Berkeley, and it went 40% over budget and over time. And I thought I was the unlucky one. I asked my friends around, and they said, "You did fine. You only went that much over budget and time." And I was like, "What the heck?" That's the normal expectation from the industry, and that made me dig more and more and more. And I realized this is the second biggest industry in the world, and the only one whose productivity is declining for last 4 decades. And that was a really good problem to solve.
Maybe together with healthcare and education.
Yeah.
Jess, can you give a comment on this? How's your take on this as an investor?
I mean, the construction space has been fascinating to me for quite a while. I kind of nailed it. It's an industry that has seen declining labor productivity for the last bunch of decades. And I think the thing that threw me as quite surprising is the fact that it's not digitized necessarily on site, but the back office has digitized. They've adopted BIM at scale. There's a bunch of software in the office like Procore starting to dominate the actual market, and yet for some reason labor productivity has declined. I think a big piece of this is that requirements for buildings have gotten more complex, and the tools are incredibly old. I mean, Procore is one of the best things in the market today, and it is a decade and a half old. The Revit stack is even older again. So there's a real need for new tooling in this space, and it's not just about the labor productivity, but construction company margins are actually at all-time lows too. So I think MeltPlan's got a really interesting view into this, and I think has potential to solve both the productivity side of the house, but also increase margins of the construction companies themselves.
What's your take, kind of why are we seeing that pre-construction in particular, but also construction at large is unsolved despite all of these new software tools coming to market? There are many built environment investors, and we seem to not yet have really cracked the nut here.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and that was the exact question I had before I put my own money in the game as well. And one of the big reasons, Andrea, is that most of the data in this industry is documents and images. And before AI, software could not even analyze them. Humans had to key in the information. So the tools before AI were asking humans to enter data through their keyboards and mouse clicks, and then they might get some intelligence, if not all, back from it. The new world is, can you put in your documents and images or plans and drawings, and can you get some intelligence back from it very fast, right? So that's a big change that's going to happen now. But I think the problem before was the buildings have become more complex. Thus, the teams have become more fragmented. Just to give you a quick stat, Andreas, Empire State Building in 1931 was built in 19 months. Soup to nuts. Salesforce Tower, after 85 years, was built in 7 years. Right? And it's no fault of any employee or worker who was building the building. They all did a good job. It's just that you need about 40 plus skills to build a building. An architect, a mechanical engineer, a plumbing engineer, and so on and so forth. These 40 skills were housed under 3 companies when Empire State Building was built. They're housed under 30 plus companies now. So there are 30 teams trying to access the plan or work on a plan in their own very narrowed silo, and their decision impacts someone else's decision, and they can't communicate properly. So planning is the most important thing. I tell my software engineers, you are lucky because if you ship a buggy code, we can still fix it after you ship it. You can't ship a buggy building. So the planning in the building has to be rock solid, and that's why we are building the planning engine to help all these stakeholders to come together, plan better, and AI can help them surface insights from drawings and documents, which could not happen before.
I want to ask you, Clemens, Mr. Clemens, I want to ask you, why do you think that betting on a startup to do this instead of one of the established players makes sense? Because one would think that with all the AEC suppliers out there, why are you daring to bet against them on a new player?
I mean, this is a classic question for so many sectors. In this particular case, you just look at the market and you go, has Revit innovated much over the last, 2 and a bit decades they've actually been in market? No, not really. The industry has been lagging because the software tools that the incumbents have produced are old-fashioned. They're built on a rotten core of incredibly old code, and you can't just stack modern applications on top of that. Most of them in the space that we've seen need to be reinvented from the ground up. And there's just no hope that they can actually do this. They're quite acquisitive. Autodesk, Nemetschek, a lot of these big players in the market want to acquire startups and integrate them into the platform, but they lack a lot of the in-house resources to really think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead like startups truly can. And so for us, it was a no-brainer decision. I think you have to back startups to look at this market with an entirely newer lens. And I think importantly as well, one of the reasons I was really excited to back Kanav and the MeltPlan vision is because he's an outsider to the construction industry. His co-founder is a construction professional, so there's intelligence coming from that side of the house. But sometimes I think you need someone from outside the sector to really see the problems and the pains that sector suffers. And so that was an exciting option for me. And that's why we don't expect the incumbents to actually build anything interesting in this space.
10 years before I build anything interesting, which is hopefully EUVC. I was part of a venture firm that was doing deep tech investments, and some of them were within the space of construction. And I remember this was done robotic stuff with, in construction, out on the field, and you could bring out a container that had the whole thing in there, blah, 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 all this stuff. What everyone said was you don't want to touch construction because it's such a slow adoption industry. They're so, they do not want to touch tech. One, does that still hold? What I just said is 10 years old. 2, how have you approached it as a founder to break into that industry and actually become someone who the industry trusts?
Yeah, it still somewhat holds, but that's not because this industry is slow. It holds because of the classic problem, which is if the delta of the value you are bringing in the product is not a lot, the industry will adopt it slow. So as I said, right, I mean, this industry is full of so many documents and images and drawings. Like if you can't provide any value, if your only value is, hey, here is the form, fill up these forms, and we're going to create some dashboards for you, like that's asking them to do more work than less work. So the software's promise has to be, can you do less work on my software and can I give you back more value? That divide of the ROI of getting more back from software than working on software then investing in it was not huge. Once that picks up, and that's what we are working towards, is that can we ask our users to do less work and get more value from it? That's when the adoption will kick in. And this industry is definitely having a fear of missing out moment with AI. I can see that. So they're actively buying, but they're also actively being cautious because there are a lot of vibe coding tools that are coming out which do not have enough depth in them. So you need to have a good depth in the product. You need to make it valuable. The classic product problem is it creating true value, and the adoption will come by.
Us in the tech industry, we're like, I'm sitting here literally vibe coding my own chief of staff, and I'm amazed, and I think it's so cool. It's going to allow me to do so many great things. But then I step outside of my door into my neighbors in these suburbs in Denmark, and like people are super scared of AI, and their default knee-jerk reaction is, nah, you can't trust it. It does, like, it just pulls random stuff out of Google, blah blah blah. How do you deal with that certainty problem, or the lack of trust, or the
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the premise of our product principles. In the before AI, it was a very deterministic world. You knew what the software will do, and it will just do that, right? With AI, it's becoming less deterministic. So your AI systems have to be reliable, which means every time you prompt it, it gives the same answer or similar. It doesn't go off course. Second, it has to be trustworthy. Whatever the AI is saying, can it back it up with where it got the answers from, or what are the sources? And the third is it has to be accurate, which is, have you tested enough in real life scenarios? So one of our products is helping architects and engineers in figuring out how do they stay compliant to the local laws and regulations, because they have to for fire life safety. There are a lot of laws they have to follow and regulations they have to follow. Our system helps them to follow them. How do we know it's good? Building inspectors have to give examination every year to pass it. So we took the practice tests from those building inspector examinations. We amassed about 3,000 questions, and we said, how well is AI passing them? And the score used to be 70% when we started. Now it's 95% plus. So this is our own AI system. If you give it to GPT or Gemini or Claude, they might answer 80% or more, but they will never give you good sources to back it up. That's where the trust gets lost.
Yeah, Jess, what's your take on this? How are you thinking about what construction will look like in 10 years, given everything we're seeing now? I know it's a hard question.
Yeah, construction in 10 years is a difficult one to think about. But I mean,
well,
if we're thinking
10
about
years back, it would be you start building a massive building. In 10 years, you might be done if you're lucky.
It's gotten slower, it's gotten worse. Yeah, exactly. We're hoping over the next 10 years, we actually see some labor productivity rise. I think we're going to see the dawn of robotics on the construction side over the next 10 years cycle. I think humanoids are advancing a lot. A lot of the robotic form factors and a lot of the vision language action models, as well as navigation in these unstructured environments, which is core to what a construction site is, are really improving. And I think we're going to see useful robotics on the actual physical construction side of the house. But I think the back office is going to change incredibly rapidly. To Kanav's point, our thesis was always that AI could have amazing benefits to construction, but just so much of what is in the back office of a GC is unstructured PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, images, a bunch of scanned documents that are low resolution. This was something that just couldn't be passed by AI of 5 years ago. It was incredibly difficult. There has been a fundamental change over the last 2 years, and AI is now useful and capable of handling these things, but you really need to build proper systems around it. You can't just throw Gemini or ChatGPT at it and go, hey, this is going to work immediately out of the gate. To your point, how do you build trust? How do you make sure AI is giving you the right information? You need a sourcing system in the back end. You also need really appropriate harnesses to make sure that AI can use the data in the correct way. It knows what it's looking for, and it can give users everything they need in a user interface so that they can correct the errors that AI generates, which is inevitable. It's just what happens, in a really efficient way. And then you can use all of that information that the user is giving you now to retrain your models on the back end very effectively. And that is where MeltPlan's thesis aligned with ours absolutely perfectly. And I think that's why it's going to be adopted incredibly rapidly within the back house of construction.
Kanav, if we take the broader question of where will construction be, then let's look at just pre-construction, which is where you're targeting. Where would you say, what is possible, what is doable in, let's say a customer picks up your product tomorrow, where will they be in their own processes in 1 year? And then if we look further out, where will the industry be when it comes to pre-planning?
Yeah, I'll tell you the vision we are keeping ourselves for next 5 years, right? And that's where we see the industry to go is, let's go out 5 years forward and say, someone builds a prompt and says, can you draw me a permit-ready drawing set for a data center that houses 1,000 H100s in Albuquerque, New Mexico? It's a simple prompt. You can ask that prompt today as well to any AI, but they will give you very bad designs. Those designs will not be compliant with the regulations. Those designs won't be cost optimized. Those designs won't be schedule optimized, which is the timeline for construction. And those designs won't be value engineered. But the system we are building is, can we, these four computes, fundamental computes for construction, which is, are you compliant to regulations? Are you keeping this in control from a cost side and from a timeline point of view and from a value engineering point of view? We want to build all these four compute systems so that people can get from an idea to a plan that's ready for construction in as less as a few months for a data center versus 1 year, or a hospital versus a few days for a home.
We have a couple of what we call super hospitals in Denmark that they were started a long time ago, probably more than a decade, and they're not done yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be very helpful if we could get this solved. So now, guys, thank you so much for joining me. To anyone tuning in, I just want to say that MeltPlan has early customers in the US and UAE, and they're trying to make construction better planned and more predictable, but damn, do we need that in Europe. So if there are any European developers or contractors who are innovative and early adopters, I think you should reach out to Kanav and MeltPlan, because damn, it would be good if we could get that into the European ecosystem. Kanav, Jess, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thanks so much, Andreas.